I wanted to address some noteworthy and or common comments that I got on the previous video. I'm gonna keep it real with you right now. This is genuinely like probably the 10th time I've tried to do this recording, and it's been long every single time. But I think every issue, every problem is worked out, is fixed. I think it'll be fine this time, hopefully. Okay, so I've got things written down from either, again, individual noteworthy comments or just from common things that were being said or asked. And yeah, I'm gonna try to do this quick. So hopefully I don't miss anything. So starting off, one of probably the most common things mentioned was asking about the screwdriver and malicious alts, and also about rocket launcher alts. Now, a couple of things to preface with that'll have a little bit of relevance for a lot of these things. First of all, the original scope and intent for this mod was for it to be an alternative arsenal entirely, meaning all sorts of things are changed up. So, for example, this right here is the rocket launchers are alternate shotguns. So if I do this, you got that. If I do this, then you've got what's kind of like a regular SRS launcher, but then it's got this whole entire aspect to it where... Okay, yep. Where that becomes like that. Now, having said that though, there's a chance that with the amount of people who kind of seem to expect this to just be something that adds alternates to the game that didn't previously exist, there's a chance I might add some configuration, maybe like a preset, which you can have that will be purely additive, so it won't mess with the rest of your arsenal. By the way, in regards to the hammer, because that makes it seem like the hammers are just gone, the hammers are an arm. Alright, so yeah, that's what's going on with all that, is that answers the rocket launcher alts one. If I can actually achieve a scope that is beyond the original scope, which whether or not I'm able to do that's really going to depend on how much extra support the mod gets, externally from me, because I don't generally like to have to think from the perspective of, oh, is this gonna, how much support am I getting, how much attention is this getting, whatever. Usually, and for 12 years now, I will just work on the basis of, is there anyone who wants this? Yes, then I'll end up dumping way more time into it than I should. But my hand has been forced, I can't really do that anymore. Yeah, now in regards to the screwdriver malicious alts, there is something planned. The screwdriver alt is designed for the whole arsenal to be changed, because the screwdriver alt takes from the sawed-on shotgun, which doesn't exist, because it's this instead. But I might make another type of screwdriver alt that is instead for people who don't have their entire arsenal changed, because having two sawed-on shotguns would be two sawed-ons would be kind of weird. So I might make another one, depending on whether or not there's, again, enough support for me to actually go with something with that much of a larger scope, because that does increase the scope of the project. And yeah, and I'm it's kind of difficult because I'm having to talk about all this really fast and try not to miss any points. Because then the malicious beam cutter, I also have a plan for that. It's pretty much just, it's the same idea everyone thought of, really. It's just this, but for heat instead. Pretty much the idea everyone came up with. That is, I think, that might have been disorganized, but I am again kind of rushing this. It's also getting really hot in my room, so that's also making me want to rush this, because... so, there are some criticisms, which, to be fair, this... Yeah, I don't disagree necessarily with... I mean, okay, some of them I do disagree with, but... I don't... disagree feels a little too strong, I called the video "and hopefully good" for a reason, and that's because I don't actually think that it's good. I mean, it might be good. I don't necessarily think it's definitively good. It has barely had any balancing and playtesting, so yeah, it's almost certainly not balanced. The design definitely is not perfect or anything like that. I wouldn't even really consider myself a competent anything, let alone competent game designer. But anyway. Yeah, so I'm gonna go over those criticisms. So the first one, I guess I'll go over this one first, was that it's too similar to the hammer because of the speed mechanic. I'm just straight up, I disagree with this one personally, but if there's a better way to do it, I will listen to any suggestions for a better way to encourage someone to not just stand still to make aiming easy. that feels natural and not forced. I don't really consider the hammer, like, I didn't even think of the hammer when I made that. I mostly thought about what was written in the book that's in the museum that you can read if you want. Because it mentions a similar thing. It's technically different, but it mentions a similar concept mechanic. Yeah, I didn't even think about the hammer. And to me, speed isn't really, like, a unique mechanic to the hammer in the sense that, like, it's not really repeating a concept to me because it's so generic. Like, your speed is just a generic variable that you can bind to different mechanics as far as I'm concerned. I don't really see any need to intentionally force something different just because something already has that as part of it. But that is just my personal opinion. If there's a better way to do it, there's actually someone who's very adamant that there's a better way to do it, but they didn't say what it was. If there was a better way to do it, then I will listen to that. Like, genuinely. Like I said, I don't think that this thing is, like, perfect or anything. But as it currently stands, this is the best way I have seen, this is the best way I know of, and I'm just going to focus on balancing this until I have something shown that shows to be better. And then some combos seem too strong. Honestly, I agree with this, especially in the sandbox, because in the sandbox, it makes it extremely easy to do stuff like this. And that can seem very, very strong. Granted, with swords machines, you can also kill them like this. By just genuinely spamming the shotgun, that can also kill them. But still, like, I can see how it could seem too strong. I find that in practice, trying to do a lot of the super strong combos and get full value out of them where it, like, annihilates an enemy is very, very difficult. Someone else also mentioned thinking that, and they very well might be correct, but believing that sawblade combos were too strong. I did do some balancing adjustments just because I had to update how the sawblades worked. I wasn't really trying to do balancing adjustments, but then just kind of had to update how they work. And so I'm going to demonstrate where they currently are. Now, this doesn't really say much about how it plays in practice, so this only says so much, but here goes. So I'm going to compare the all three different tiers, and then also without any charging. Because if you didn't realize, it works on a 3-tier system. So that's why that's segmented into 3 different segments, is because those are the different tiers. So if I do this, that's what you usually get out of a sawblade. If I do this, here's what you usually get out of... Was that a tier 2? Oh. Whoops. Okay, that's why. I was so confused by that. I forgot to do invincible enemies for the, like... Okay, that makes sense. Hold on. Invincible enemies, charge them up to tier 1. And then... There we go, yeah, so there's a tier 1. Then we got invincible enemies, charge them up to tier 2. There's tier 2. Invincible enemies, charge this one up to tier 3. And there's tier 3. So you can see kind of the type of balance here is that tier 1 doesn't give much extra damage. It's mostly just there to proc conduction. Tier 2 is where you get some decent extra damage, and tier 3 is just mostly just fully maxing it out. It doesn't boost as much as you got as a boost for the tier 2. Rolled with tier 1 to tier 2, I should say. All the different tiers, except for tier 0, where you don't do anything, those all give conduction as well. So tier 1 still gives conduction. And then another thing to note is that every single time anytime any enemy charges something, that part doesn't matter. So if I go ahead and, like, fully charge them, now, if I just wait, this is how long it takes for it to discharge over time. So you can see it's taken it quite a while for it to discharge just over time. Now, if instead I start shooting sawblades through them, you can see that discharged way faster. And the reason for that is because there's a charge cost every time a charged enemy charges a projectile or a sawblade or a beam or whatever. You can't just get, like, a bunch of tier 3 sawblades. Also because, if you also notice, tier 3 drains really fast, tier 2 drains pretty fast, and then tier 1 is the one that really lingers around for a while. So that also means that it's going to be really hard for you to get a bunch of tier 3 sawblades. Although, it is not impossible, especially if you have a bunch of enemies that are fully charged, or not fully charged, that are like charged up in there in like a group or something, because already charged sawblades can get upgraded to higher tiers if it then hits another enemy that isn't even charged to tier 3. It can get upgraded to tier 3 by just hitting 3 different tier 1 enemies. And if that, but the thing is, the overall charge cost will be way more than just going to tier 3 immediately. So the odds are, if you do that, yeah, it's not gonna, like, it shouldn't be super powerful, but also there's been minimal playtesting, so I don't know yet. So that is a balance for the sawblades. That may be overpowered. It very well could be. It also might not be. I don't know. Oh, and also mentions that the concept of, well, that the skill floor is too high, and also that it seems weird and arbitrary to pierce a beam through enemies to be the way that you get the conduction to pop. Now, both of these things I kind of was concerned about when I was originally starting on this, but in my experience, once I added in all the other ways to proc conduction, it almost started to feel like a bit of the opposite problem. Well, not the skill floor being too high, not that one, but the arbitrariness, where it's like, this thing has a lot of ways for you to proc conduction, so if I like one simple way to do it, you just throw up a coin, charge the coin, boom, that'll proc conduction. Another way you can proc conduction, that's even more like direct, do this. Obviously no weapon cooldown is on, that's why it doesn't cost anything right now. And then another way you can proc conduction is, this is probably one of my favorite means, is you can set up a saw trap, just charge them up, and bait them into it. And there we go, that will proc conduction. I don't know why I'm fighting them, they're all invincible. One way that I didn't even think of myself, but someone thought of as a way to proc conduction, but I didn't have to add this to the game, because this just literally naturally worked, is, and I think this is a really cool one, they actually were being critical of it, and they suggested this as a thing that you should be able to do. But I realized, like, oh wait, this is a thing you can do. Like, all the pieces are already there. So I'm gonna make them radiant because it makes it cooler. And pretty much what you want to do is you want to grab the radiant schism and you want to charge them right up to when they're in tier 3, and then you want to slam them back into the ground. It also need to be filled with nails. So if I do that, then they didn't die. Why? Oh, because they're invincible. That's why. They have to die. That's why you're slamming them into the ground. So let's try that again. So if an enemy is at tier 3 charge and they die, that will also proc conduction. I only mentioned the fact that that makes them discharge their charge, but that does also proc conduction. So that was already a thing before that person mentioned it. You do have to time it with the tier 3 charge though. That is a requirement. The reason I did that originally was because I kept having a problem where sometimes you'd find a conduction target, and then that conduction target would just get, well, not conduction target, but I guess a charge target, and then they would get absolutely annihilated by a malicious face or something, and it would just kill them, and then you're just like, well, fuck, that was a waste. So what I ended up doing for that is, first the discharging thing, then I was like, okay, you know what, screw it, just to really make it not feel like too much of a waste, if you like put them at tier 3, I'm just gonna make it to where they also proc conduction, so you get something out of it, even when they die. And so, yeah, that's why that's like that. And that was already done before that person commented it. I just didn't mention it. I didn't mention a lot of things because I didn't want to go on too long of an exposition, because there's a lot going on with this thing. So I took like a week of like multiple 12-hour fucking work shifts on this thing. Is because there was a lot. I think it was a little over a week actually, but anyway. Yeah, it was over a week. It was kind of like the modeling and texturing and stuff. But speaking of modeling and texturing, a ubiquitous compliment that was very surprising to me were people saying that the visuals for it look really good and look vanilla and look official. I did not expect this. Of course, I did go with like the concept art and also the work in progress model. This is not the work in progress model, and this is not an edited version of the work in progress model. I don't have the work in progress model. I had to take screenshots of the work in progress model and use that as like reference. And that's how I did like the first iteration of it. And then I looked at concept art and whatnot to like then continue polishing it, and then I also iterated by sending pictures of it repeatedly to my friend who gave me like that just talked to me about it as I did it, but I still didn't expect people to really think it looked good. Because I don't consider myself, as I said, competent at really anything, let alone competent at, like, visual art. But surprisingly, people actually thought it looked good. Again, surprise to me. And then in regards to whether or not the mod is dead, I kind of talked about this earlier, but mod not dead. It should have hopefully managed to get to its original scope, and if there's enough support for it, then I can do extra things for it. I don't even guarantee the original scope's going to be done. I'm just saying that that's the target. Because I do want to clarify that, like, when I uploaded that video, all the numbers you see right now, those numbers were in air, you know? Like, literally that video, like, bumped my subscriber count up by, like, 3 times, and at the same time, my actual real life, I'm not gonna get into it fully, but abysmal, terrible. If I didn't have a friend, then I would not even be here, so, like, actual real life, not good. Not good. And so that's the reason why the description was written like that. That's the reason why the end of the video was written like that. Hopefully I said everything on whatever topic that was. I'm gonna just continue with things. Hopefully I got the message across. I forgot what I was saying. Someone asked about 2 weapons at once. That wasn't on the beamcutter video, but that was on a different one. Yeah, it's because the hammer is an arm, so. Of course the Hakita comments. I'm gonna save Hakita comments for later. Not comments from Hakita. I should clarify. These are not comments from Hakita. These are comments about Hakita that mention Hakita. There's a fuck ton of comments mentioning Hakita. That's what I mean. Okay, just to clarify. So people asked about the black hole launcher. I didn't mention this yet, have I? I don't think I have. Yeah, so I was like, no, I'm not doing the black hole launcher. It seems like it would have been complete buttons, and I don't have any ideas for it. I came up with an idea, also kind of ripped from a concept for my game. I don't know how good it is, but it's an idea. If I have the time to and everything, then maybe I'll try it out, and maybe black hole launcher will be real. Someone said I worry Hakita would nerf this weapon into oblivion just like he did the jackhammer. So fortunately for this person, Hakita does not have, currently anyway, they do not have any say in the balancing of the mod. So there's the situation there. I am pleased to inform you that they have no effect on things. Not currently, anyway. They could technically probably give me, like, some, like, intellectual property threats or something, and then they could probably force me to nerf it, but I don't think they're gonna do that. And then someone else asked, is this going to be available in thunderstore somewhere else, or is it already available somewhere else? A lot of the time, it's not available anywhere publicly right now, but a lot of the time, the way that I will do things is that I will have, like, it available as free and open source whilst I'm developing it on GitHub. That's not the case in this instance. It's not available anywhere. It will be available on Thunderstore if it's finished, or at least that's the plan. But that's only if it gets finished. But I'm not going to guarantee. Going on to the Hakita comments, aka comments about Hakita, not comments from Hakita. So first one, this is a direct quote. Someone said, "Get hired by the big Kita, bro." Hate to inform you, but that is out of my control, and also that's not happening. Game's almost finished, and the game has a full arsenal already, so it's almost certainly not happening. Having said that, if I had the opportunity to be hired to work on this game, then I probably would take it, because, again, financially terrible, actual just circumstances, life is awful, whereas that would be an offer to, I mean, I prefer to make my own game, right? But it's like, that would be an offer to work on a game that I do like, and I do like game development. That's why I spend so much time on game development and have done so for like 6 or 7 years or something like that. So it's like, yeah, I would take that, but that's not happening. And then tell Hakita, I hate to inform, but I do not have any sort of direct means of contacting Hakita about this, and I think if I did, I don't think they'd want to hear about some weapon, some stupid modded weapon that I need. I don't think they'd want to hear about that, so that's that's the situation there. Hate to say it, but can't do that. When people saying Hakita steal this, no, I can't do anything about it if they did, but of course, I realize people when they say that, they're not being literal, they're joking. The whole thing's pretty much, I think all of those comments were pretty much jokes, but still. Yep. Kind of just taking the hypotheticals of face value instead of as pure just jokes, because it's silly. Is that everything? That would be everything. I'm editing right now when I'm realizing, no, that wasn't everything. I was wrong. It's horrible. It's a tragedy. So, really just all that there also is to say is I have a Discord server now. The link will be in the description. Some people wanted that because, you know, way to discuss things and whatnot. So yeah, there's that. That's kind of... So that is practically everything, but yeah, that's that. If you'd rather discuss things through a comment in the comment section, that is fine. I'm not actually a huge Discord fan, so I get it. I generally don't want to join people's Discord servers. There's exceptions, but I generally don't. That's acceptable. I will still be reading comments and whatnot, and still be acknowledging comments the way that I do. So, yeah.